Season 2, Episode 7, Producers Need Breaks 2. Being a music producer, you're always on a computer. So it's important to take breaks, to have hobbies away from the computer so that you as the music producer can get the best results. Before we get into this episode, I want to tell you that I created a page. It's called the resources page. Just go to itsgratuitous.com/resources. I have listed all of the free things that I ever mentioned. I want to talk about the M Audio Oxygen Pro MIDI keyboard. So to get a really good experience inside of FL Studio, it's important that you have a good MIDI keyboard, at least a minimum 49 key. Now, in order to get this working good with FL Studio, I wrote a free script. So as of FL Studio 20.7, I believe they introduced something called MIDI scripting. It's huge for FL Studio because back in the day, sometimes MIDI devices didn't work the best inside of FL Studio. So back then, there really wasn't a workaround. Either the hardware worked or it didn't. But now MIDI scripting allows you to write a script, or many times there's free available scripts online. It's easy to install. You just have to install it once, and then your keyboard is up and running. And so what MIDI scripting does is it allows you to set up any of the buttons to do whatever you want them to do. And so that's pretty cool because you have full control. And even the old controllers back in the day, the ones that were nice but didn't integrate well with FL Studio, if you know how to do the scripting, or if there's a script out there, you could easily just install it, and then that MIDI keyboard is now good to go. Now, this M Audio Oxygen Pro, in my opinion, checks all the boxes for what I'm looking for in a MIDI keyboard. One thing to mention is that the pitch wheel is having some problems. M Audio even wrote a little update in their code, but it still didn't fix it. But for me, the pitch wheel isn't a big deal because I don't use the pitch wheel as I make beats. I'm mainly concerned with having nice keys where I can use the octave button to go up and down. It has the transport buttons. It also has the loop button, so you can switch in between song and pattern mode. So if you use FL Studio and if you're looking for a MIDI keyboard, definitely read and watch my review of the Oxygen Pro 49. I have one main review, and then I also have about 10 or 11 small videos showing you how to set it up, how to install the free MIDI script, and why I think the Oxygen Pro will give you a great experience inside of FL Studio. All right, so into the topic about Producers Need Breaks 2. For those of you that know, I was an electrician for about 10 years here in Canada, and I was always doing music production on the side. I would do my tutorials on the side. And so now, for me doing this full time, I'm telling you guys that, it's important that producers need breaks too. Because when you work a job that doesn't require being on a computer, and you come home and enjoy being on the computer or making music, so if you take a break and go on the computer as a music producer, right, it's kind of hard to differentiate between, business and playtime. And also, if you are a music producer, always being on a computer, it requires a lot of self-discipline so that you don't get distracted and going onto different websites, social media or something. Like that stuff is so distracting when you have a feed and you keep going through that feed. Get out of there as fast as you can. Now, another thing is a regular 40-hour job that is Monday to Friday. You also get weekends off many times, right? Like not all jobs, but a lot of jobs. Like when I was an electrician, I did work Monday to Friday. The hours were from 7 a.m. So it was early starts. Many times I'd have to leave my house by about 6:20 or 6:30, sometimes earlier, sometimes later, depending on how far the job site was. Sometimes a job site could be an hour away. Sometimes it could be 10 minutes away. I really liked the 10-minute ones because on the way home, you're just home and you're good to go. But again, you get weekends off. So as a music producer, I really don't have the weekends like that. So I have to decide, when do I take time off? Maybe it could be a couple hours in the afternoon. Maybe I go for a bike ride or, take a break, but then I come back and maybe I get some stuff done. But all I'm saying is that your time is spent differently. You still get whatever time you want because, that's just kind of being like an entrepreneur. Like you have to be able to juggle your time and be good with your time. And again, that requires a lot of self-discipline. So As a music producer, you need to learn balance and when you are tired, and you need to find outside hobbies, okay? If you do, it's just going to allow you to still live like a normal life. And when you come back to making music, or in my case, also doing these podcasts or courses, books, all that stuff, when I come back to that stuff, I'm fresh, I'm excited about it, and I want to get it done, right? Now, a big thing is being efficient allows you to tackle more in less time. When you set up templates or you start thinking about your workflow, it can save you a lot of time. But again, thinking too much about your workflow, it can also hinder you if you're not careful, right? I tell you about that in my book, Ultimate FL Studio Template Creation Guide. And so what I discovered with a template is sometimes you can create a template and it saves you a lot of time. It's awesome. It's simple. It saves you a lot of clicks. Sometimes a template can slow you down, right? Sometimes the project can always take so long to open. You don't even use half the things. So you just got to be careful when it comes to a template. But sometimes a template, like if you think about a template properly and implement it properly, you can shave off like maybe 30 to 40% of the repetitive tasks. And that's just because computers can do repetitive tasks, such as if you guys check out my FL Studio template, it's available for purchase, just $9. I have went through the pain of trying to set up these big templates only to realize that, I set up my template this way because it allows me to work universally, whether I'm working with vocals or whether I'm working with, just a beat. Now, again, because you don't have those 2 days off every weekend, sometimes you do have to take that full day off away from work. Now, work for a music producer may be someone else's fun and leisure time. When I was an electrician, I would work from 7 to 3:30 being an electrician, but I always would come home and I wanted to make music. I wanted to go on the computer. I wanted to learn something about making beats. And so when I came home at night, like this was kind of my fun time, my practice time, whatever. But for me now, I wake up and it's like, this is it. But then let's say I'm working a full day, but then what do I do after, right? Because if I just keep going back to music, I'm going to get burnt out. It's going to be boring. It's not going to be fun. And so that's what I'm saying. You have to find your hobbies or find things to do. It just allows you to take breaks. Also, one final thing I want to say about that is creating music and finishing music. Okay, listen to those words carefully. Finishing music. Creating the music is pretty much the easy part, right? Finishing it is the hardest part because, you got to get your arrangement right. You got to get your mixing right. You got to get your mastering right. And you want it to be a complete project. And so this requires a well-rested mind. When you sit down, you need to be ready to work to finish that song. Like if I were to sit and make beats, like I could make beats, one after another, quick. But if you wanted me to finish those beats, I'd say, okay, well, I'll come back the next day with a fresh mind and I'll sit down and I'll put more effort into that arrangement, more effort into, audio painting, all that stuff, right? Again, check out my book called Audio Painting if you want to learn about that. It's all about communicating with the listener and preparing them for what's next in the song. Now, I want to close out here with an example. I call this the ping pong example. And so in high school, I played a lot of ping pong. In my basement, I had a ping pong table growing up. I wasn't amazing at it, but it was a lot of fun to play with friends, all right? Now, one friend would come over often to play. And sometimes what would happen is we would take 2 or 3 month breaks, and then we would start playing ping pong again. And each time we came back, we always felt that we were getting better than before. Now, maybe we were just thinking that, but the rallies were getting better, when you hit the ball back and forth, and the rallies were becoming longer and they were becoming more intense. Maybe we were hitting the ball a little bit harder. And when we came back from those 2 or 3 month breaks, we also felt more rested and we enjoyed playing ping pong more, right? So this is what I'm trying to tell you, that when I come back to making music, or when you come back to making music, right? You come back refreshed. Maybe you had time to read more, you're more educated, you come back in fresh. So I think this ping pong example of taking breaks has some merit in allowing you to be a music producer for a much longer term who is well rested and, can think with a clear mind. All right, so that is this episode on producers need breaks too. You know, if you're working yourself hard, sometimes taking a break, reading a book, or, you know, finding just a different hobby that just gives you a little mix up in your life is going to do wonders for you, okay? So thank you so much for listening. Remember, for any of my free downloads that I mentioned, they are all available on my resources page. Just go to itsgratuitous.com/resources. And finally, visit itsgratuitous.com to learn more about my FL Studio training. Thanks for listening.